You can't really visit Paris and miss it. One of the most iconic landmarks in the world, the 324-meter high Iron Tower, built in 1889, 100 years after the French Revolution, holding the title for tallest man-made structure in the world for 41 years, surpassed only by the Chrysler Tower. The Eiffel Tower has stood the test of time, attracting millions of visitors for more than 136 years, most recently the center stage of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. In preparation for the Games, the tower undergone a €64 million repaint. This, however, has barely scratched the surface, literally and figuratively. A source said that if Gustave Eiffel visited the place, he would have a heart attack. Let's find out why. Although it bears his name, the Eiffel Tower wasn't actually designed by Gustave Eiffel himself. You see, the initial designs were made by two engineers working at Eiffel's engineering firm. I'm not gonna try and say their full names, because I'll probably butcher them. So anyway, Maurice and Emile came up with the first design of the tower in an effort to have the winning design for the centerpiece of the 1889 World's Fair, commemorating the 100-year anniversary of the French Revolution. They presented the design to Gustave, but he was rather skeptical at first. However, after some decorative alterations from Eiffel's chief architect, Stephen Silvestre, such as the monumental arches and the glass-walled halls on each level, Eiffel approved the design. An interesting fact is that the curvature of the tower was mathematically determined to offer optimal wind resistance. Bear in mind that this was done at a time where every calculation was basically done by pen and paper. Construction of the tower began in January 1887. Concrete slabs were used as the foundation of the four legs, with pairs of massive bolts 10 cm in diameter and 7.5 meters in length to anchor the iron shoes to the concrete foundations. After those were completed, the iron structure was slowly erected. Parts came prefabricated in sub-assemblies from Eiffel's factory and assembled on site completely by rivets. In total, 2.5 million rivets were installed on the tower. You can actually buy an original one from the store there, if you're interested. For every rivet installed, a team of 4 people were needed. One to heat it up, another to hold it in place, a third to shape the head, and the unfortunate soul to beat it in place with a sledgehammer. Until reaching the first level and connecting the 4 legs together, massive hydraulic jacks and sandboxes were used to support them. Interestingly, the angle at which they were constructed was intentionally steeper, allowing the workers to precisely adjust the angles before joining them together. You might think that a lot of manpower would be needed to erect such a structure, especially back in the late 19th century. Quite the contrary. In fact, only between 150 and 300 workers were needed on site, along with another 150 or so in the factory, manufacturing the components. In total, 18,000 parts were made at the factory to complete the tower, adding up to an astonishing 7,300 tons of iron. And if you have some engineering background, you may ask, why not steel? Excellent question. The simple answer is that Gustave was more confident in iron. The correct term, by the way, is puddling iron, as he had used it in all his previous constructions, such as the Statue of Liberty, which I'll be covering in an upcoming video very soon. By the end of March of 1889, the tower was complete, apart from minor works on the lifts and other facilities. By the end of the World Fair in May of the same year, the tower was already an instant success, attracting 2 million people during the event alone. So the original contract for the tower was valid for 20 years, meaning that after that term, the owner of the tower was to be the city of Paris. This meant that after those 20 years, the tower was to be dismantled entirely in 1909. However, as it turned out to be pretty useful to transmit radio and telecommunication signals, it stood there, untouched ever since. But the constant battle with the elements causes a slight problem. You see, although puddling iron could theoretically last forever, it has to be repainted regularly. Gustave Eiffel himself wrote that identifying and stopping the spread of rust was the biggest challenge to the construction's longevity. To preserve it for so long, the tower has undergone 20 repaints over its 136-year lifetime. The paint alone adds about 60 tons of weight. The most recent repaint was in preparation for the 2024 Paris Olympics. However, according to experts, this was nothing more than a cosmetic makeover. Originally, a third of the tower was to be stripped, treated, and repainted, but because of the COVID pandemic and other delays related to high levels of lead in the old paint, only 5% of the tower was treated. The operating company is reluctant to close the tower for extended periods of time because of the millions of tourists that visit the tower annually. You see, every year, the Eiffel Tower attracts more than 6 million visitors, making it the fourth most visited cultural site in France, generating approximately 100 million euros of revenue each year. Reports suggest that the tower is in desperate need of being completely stripped down to bare metal and properly treated. Another report stated that 884 faults were found in the tower, 68 of which were structurally critical. An expert stated that the repaint has not dealt with the high levels of lead or rust, making the state of the tower even worse than it is. However, if treated properly, the Eiffel Tower could last forever. Obviously, that decision and its execution remain in the hands of Parisians seeking to save this marvel of engineering and architecture. If you enjoyed that, I recommend you watch this video next where I explain the key problems of wind energy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. And I'll see you all in the next one.